I did it. I got through all of Star Trek Discovery. Oh, it was such a painful ride. The way I handle this is I'd actually put it on my laptop while I'm doing the dishes with headphones, and it would encourage, and folding laundry, it would encourage me to get my chores done faster because I'd want to stop watching it. And so it took me a long, long time to get through all of this and catch up. Even though there's not that many episodes per season, it really is rough. Now, this 5th season, I reviewed the first episode, and then I just was too lazy to even do reviews of each subsequent episode because it was covering basically the Star Trek Next Generation Progenitor episode. If you remember that one, it was kind of like a clue hunt, and it was something that basically Picard had his like old archaeology mentor and went out. And they were trying to hunt down these clues because they thought there were these people who seeded the galaxy, and they were trying to find maybe some tech or something like that. The Romulans, the Cardassians got involved, the Klingons got involved. They all thought there was going to be a weapon that was going to like give them supremacy. And over that episode, they then found out that they just got a holographic greeting from this progenitor who was like, "Hey, we seeded the galaxy. I hope you guys remember us. Thanks for being there." And of course, Picard was happy because it was in the name of science. And all the aliens were like, yeah, this sucks. We didn't get crap out of this. And that was it. It was a pretty good episode. And so they basically go back to this. Now, what's interesting to start this just as a writing perspective from the Discovery sort of deal is this season's plot is basically a fan fiction because a lot of fan fiction books and comics that are from the licensed stuff reference old episodes and then involve a bunch of other alien races, and they just try to like shove a bunch of action into a weird concept that doesn't feel like Star Trek, and that's what bad fan fiction writers do, and that's exactly what this season was. So before we get into the season finale review proper, which is an hour-and-a-half long episode, of its 10th episode, this is the whole backdrop to what we just had. All right, my name's John Delarose. I'm a #1 best-selling science fiction author, and I write way better fiction than here. I would love for you to check out my Stars Entwined Oration War trilogy. There's a full trilogy of books, and I think I stick the landing really well with this. It really pays off for readers. It's available in print, ebook, and audio. I'll put that link in the description below, along with my other links for you guys. Thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and join us too. It means the world to us. And thanks so much for being here and loving good science fiction. Okay, so over the season, which I didn't cover other than the first one, this one, they dragged out like what was one Star Trek The Next Generation episode to rip off into 10 episodes. And this time, like the people who found the original progenitor stuff in the TNG episode, like hid tech they found from the progenitors, and they've got a bunch of clues hidden in different star systems. And you have to find each of the clues as a big scavenger hunt for 10 episodes. And it was painful, especially the early ones when they went to Trill and dealt with the weird non-binary with the transgender person relationship. I just like, it was so bad. But the last couple episodes, it picked up a little bit. They kind of like got past that, and they're like, oh, we better wrap up the storyline. So they kind of, didn't do as much of the like gay navel gazing stuff as they've done in prior Star Trek Discovery episodes. Thank God, because that was really hard to watch. So from this episode on its own point, it can't stand on its own because you have to watch that whole season at least in order to understand what's happening. And then you kind of like, need to know how Discovery got to the 31st century and all that. So you kind of got to watch the whole show. Otherwise, there's not much of a payoff here. And that sucks by itself. I love that Strange New Worlds is kind of being more episodic because, it feels more like Star Trek that way. This doesn't feel like Star Trek. Now, we get into it, and the beginning of this episode actually has a big battle fight between two girl bosses, okay? They are in the progenitor tech thing, which is like some giant like portal to different worlds that the progenitors are seeding. And here's the bad lady. So this is like some mercenary bad lady who's been attempting to steal the progenitor tech the entire time, one step ahead of Discovery. She's teamed up with the Breen because her boy toy is like the Emperor's child or something, and the Breen are like crazy and warlike, and they've got a whole fleet. They can take out the Federation. They're so powerful. That's like a reference to Deep Space Nine and the Dominion War there. The Breen were kind of a part of that on the Dominion side. So it's, again, just like they're shoving a lot of concepts into this like a bad fan fiction. You've got your space mercenary bad people. You've got your Breen war fleet bad people. You've got the progenitor thing going on. It's a jumbled mess. And that's exactly what they try to do. They try to shove as much on the screen at a time to try to distract you. Now, this episode is really lazy writing to start out. And before we get into the pacing problems with it, it starts out with a big fight between this lady and Michael Berman, the captain of Discovery. And they're just doing a knockdown, drag-out fight of a fist fight, and it starts in a hurricane on a weather planet. And I'm starting to think, I've seen this before. This is weird. And Michael solves that eventually by jumping into the hurricane winds and flying up to the portal in through the hurricane winds, because she's so perfect. She's such a Mary Sue. She could do that, which is insane by itself. Doesn't make any sense. And then I started to think, wow, that's the way the Jedi jump. And then I realized where I'd seen this before. This was the fight between Obi-Wan at the in Attack of the Clones on the clone planet in Boba Fett. I was like, that's weird. So then it jumps through to another portal, and it's on a lava planet, and these two girls are fighting together. And they girl boss each other in a big fight, knockdown, drag out fight with like fire spitting everywhere. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is the Obi-Wan Anakin fight from the third Star Wars prequel. Holy shit, they just did both of them. They just did episode 2 and 3 in the span of 5 minutes. That's how cool and Mary Sue Michael is. It made me roll my eyes so much. So they do their fight, and then Michael's like, I can help you with this. I can bring back your dead Breen lover. Just follow me. And then the lady follows her. And of course, after this huge fight and a whole season of fighting, and this lady's betrayed Michael in Discovery 10 times before. Of course, she's going to betray her again. And Michael just goes, yeah, just follow me. Let's do this. And they end up going to the progenitor tech. And then the lady knocks Michael out and tries to steal the progenitor tech. Okay. Meanwhile, Saru, the alien here, is trying to help Discovery before he gets married to his Vulcan lady, who's kind of in charge of the Federation. That's one personal plot that is actually okay. It's a little slow. She does her Vulcan logic. He does his weird alien thing. He's actually an enjoyable character because he's a little different. So I'll give them props on that. Meanwhile, back at the progenitor thing, this lady, gets the tech. The Breen are threatening to show up, and if the Breen find this thing, they're going to open up and declare a war. Discovery's all beat up. There's this whole battle thing looming. And what happens on that front is there's no payoff. The battle doesn't happen. Saru talks the person down. I don't know if there were budget considerations or what, but usually you lead up to an epic battle or something like that. You almost die in the last moment. They kind of did that in episode 9 before this, but this episode didn't have that. You opened up with Michael's battle with this lady, which had no impact or meaning, and it was purposeless except for to show Michael as a Mary Sue. And then they walk together and they work together, and then she betrays her again out of nowhere. And there's no character development, there's no consistency to the plot, there's nothing that builds. It just ends up getting boringer and boringer. So Michael eventually jumps through and puts together a puzzle piece on this thing, which is stupid by itself. And everything's a puzzle piece after puzzle piece. And Michael's so smart and such a good fighter. She's so perfect. It's amazing. So she goes into the progenitor world, and I laugh because they actually replace the progenitor here, who's a red alien, with a black progenitor because it's Discovery. And it's ugh. And so she goes in there, and the progenitor is going to I guess do something. And Michael's and the progenitor wants Michael to be the steward of this for the next 1,000 years or something, because time passes and they're some different. Michael's no, I got to go out and save my friends, and then goes out, and then after 10 episodes of building this up this tech that's crazy, it's basically a cloning machine. And it can build a clone army really fast. And she's that's going to... So we are literally in Attack of the Clones. It's Star Wars. And by the way, it all feels like Star Wars or generic dark sci-fi thing. It doesn't feel like Star Trek. Even the aesthetics of all of it does not feel like Star Trek. And big letdown because like they're hyping this up as this like giant technology that's unheard of that can destroy worlds. Well, I mean, cloning machines that existed in Star Trek: The Next Generation. There was an episode about that. And then the Jem'Hadar literally had cloning hatcheries like to build a giant army already like 1,000 years prior to this. So really, that's not that interesting a tech. It's been done in Star Trek multiple times. What a letdown. So instead of getting any tech or Michael actually having some big development, if she actually just disappeared into this thing and became the steward of it, that actually would have been a kind of interesting character arc. But she decided to go back out and be like, nope, we're just going to blow it up. And so they blow it up, so it's gone, so nobody can ever get it again. The end. This whole like 10 episodes did not accomplish anything. They didn't get anything out of it. It's a waste. They go home. Saru and the Vulcan lady get married, have a happy life. And then Michael gets back together with her boyfriend. Yeah, let's not forget that, because that's been looming for a while, and they just wrapped that up way too fast. Now, at this point, you'd think the episode's over. They resolved the conflict. The Breen went away without a fight, which was weird, too, to do in a climax. We're about an hour into the episode, but there's still 25 minutes left. I'm like, what the hell? And for the next 25 minutes, like, it just shows, like, Michael getting old and, like, living in the woods with the black guy. They have a kid. He's going to Starfleet. She's an admiral now. Everything's hunky-dory. And so it's like a boring 20 minutes of just showing that they had a happily ever after. And it's like, that's interesting. Why? Like, that? Why would you do that for 20? Is this going to lead to something? It didn't. It just wrapped up. And then Michael goes on Discovery and takes Discovery out and puts the ship out to pasture in the middle of space. And then it ends. I mean, what the... Oh, yeah, there's one more thing, I guess. They decide to, like... She meets with this dude who set her on the missions and all that to begin with. He's a you know... And it turns out he's Daniels from Enterprise, who is engaged in the Temporal Wars. And now this is his hidden identity now after the Temporal Wars. So again, just a member berry to tie you back to Enterprise after you tied back the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine with all the other stuff. So it's another just like extra layer of fan fiction added onto her. But once she drops off a Discovery, she tells you got to remember there's a sentient ship at the end, and the ship is sentient. And when she does this, she just like leaves the ship there, and she leaves the sentient ship there. Like, that's pretty rude. Like, I get decommissioning a ship, and you know, this is not a very nice environmental play if you're just dumping a starship out in the middle of nowhere and just leaving it there. That's not very woke. Hey, you're saying like you just dump your garbage in the middle of space and just leave it there once you're done with these ships? That's weird. Why not recycle it? But otherwise, you'd think they'd do that in the 31st century. But on top of that, like, leaving a sentient being out there by itself is really, like, that's cruel. But they act like it's a good thing. And this ties in again to like some like shorts episode they did or something like that, where the Discovery was out in the middle of space, so they wanted to like put continuity into it, I guess. But it really was like a odd ending. Like, I felt bad for the starship that, like, again, it's a sentient being that you talk to. Like, why couldn't you just remove its computer program at least, like, and put it somewhere else so it didn't like deal with that? That's creepy. Oh well, that's Discovery for you. It doesn't make any sense. They just do things. And so the pacing was really bad, and it was like 25 minutes of just like nothing happening after it already ended with a like really let down of a climax to begin with. And then I found out, I looked at it, and I guess Discovery was canceled early, and this was not their intended final season or their intended final episode. And so Paramount actually went back and said, here, have 20 minutes extra of film to wrap this up. Here's your budget for that. And that's why they did this. So this literally was a tacked on 25 minutes, and it felt like it. It really just was terrible. And so this episode failed on every basic writing level. The climax did not climax. The characters like didn't learn from their prior mistakes in prior episodes and just repeated themselves. The biggest fight actually was at the like 3 to 5 minute mark at the very beginning of this, because it didn't end up in a fight. And then it had 25 minutes of denouement, which is way too much for an episode of this length. Just doesn't make sense. And so while they like wrapped up Michael and made Michael have a happy ending and have a wonderful life, because they wanted to, you know, I mean, let's be honest about what their agenda is. They want to show a stable black family that's happy raising kids in like a middle class suburban environment. That's like their dream, right? Because it doesn't exist in real life. And they did that. and that was it. Like it was a huge letdown and a big waste of an hour and a half because again, nothing happened. They didn't get the tech. The lady didn't bring her boy toy back to life. Discovery didn't gain anything. Starfleet didn't learn anything from this. The Breen just took their ball and went home, and I guess we're warring with each other, and are still warring with each other. And Discovery accomplished nothing. But that's diversity for you. I guess it's a lesson for all these companies that are putting diversity hires into all these things, that when you do things, you're going to accomplish nothing, and you're going to spin your wheels, and life's just going to get worse. For the Federation is worse than it was back when it was in the Next Generation Deep Space Nine times, because they're just barely hanging on by a thread. That's all. All right. This was a terrible episode. Really sad to watch, but the whole season was far worse than this episode. So that's it. Leave a comment down below with what you think about this. Hit the like and subscribe button. Make sure to check out Good Science Fiction on Amazon. That link's in the description below. We'll be back soon.